So your wife informed me that she has gone through half of your bracket so far.
Yes, she got to the part where I made you leave the room.
Mm-hmm. And she goes, I got to that part. I'm like, is that all you got to? Yeah. Well, it's progress.
When these dads meet world, watching Boy Meets World. We grew up on the show, now we have kids and host a podcast. We watch each episode and then share our thoughts and grades. When these dads meet world.
They want you to take the roles.
Welcome back, good-looking people, to Dads Meet World, your weekly step-by-step deep dive into that classic 90s show, Boy Meets World. I am dad number 1 this week, joined by dad number 2.
Hola, mi nombre es Brett.
Me gusta.
Me gusta grande. Me gusta keke.
Anyway, I am your host today. We're going to get into one of our favorite episodes. This has been a long time coming for us to cover a little episode called Cult Fiction. Lots for us to talk about. So I think, honestly, Brett, as much as I want to know what happened for you last week, and I know that we had kind of extra credit, we got to get into this episode. There's so much that happens, and this episode goes so fast that if we don't get into it now, we're going to get lost. And besides, we already had a discussion. I'm sure you're going to throw at the back end anyway. So,
oh, I'm sure we will. Yeah, let's dive right into our synopsis then. Cult Fiction, the 21st episode of season 4. When a lonely Shawn starts hanging around with a new group of people whom he defensively describes as not a cult, Jonathan Turner tries to stop him before
very quickly,
it's
not a cult.
Too late. Yes, very quickly. But Shawn does not want his help because he does not believe Mr. Turner really cares about him. However, when Mr. Turner gets into a motorcycle accident, it forces Shawn to reevaluate his choices. This episode was written by Jeff Minnell, directed by Jeff McCracken, Jeff times 2, that is Jeff squared. Originally aired on April 25th, 1997, and currently enjoys an IMDb rating of 8.9. Now, our previous episode enjoyed a 12.58 rating in the Nielsen's. So, Tyler, our penultimate episode in 1997 of season 4, we only have one more episode left this season. What do you think this episode pulled in the Nielsen's in 1997?
I mean, this is an incredible episode. Clearly, everyone else loves it. So, I'm going to guess like a 20 million.
You went entirely the wrong way. 9.92.
That is insane.
Lost almost 3 million viewers for the end of April. In fact, this is the lowest ratings for any episode in season 4. And we don't see ratings this low for Boy Meets World until we get into season 6.
The only thing I can think of is because of the subject matter and potentially people knowing of what is going to be in this episode, that parents decided not to show their kids this episode. It is April, so new baseball season spring, and all sorts of other stuff going on. Yeah. I hate adults from the 90s. I'm just going to say it. The adults from the 90s, you stink. They're trying to kill it, Brett. They're trying to kill it.
Yeah. This is an aberration in the ratings for Boy Meets World. Yeah. But yeah,
well, I'll tell you what, I might have watched this episode more than the people that actually watched it live.
I guarantee I have.
Yeah. Well, Brett, for the last time, we start our episode in Mr. Turner's classroom.
That's right. He's back
Oh.
for the last time. We haven't seen him for 8 episodes. He's only
not seen him for
been
quite
in,
some
this
time.
is now his 5th episode this season. We are in episode 21, and Jonathan Turner has only graced us for 5. One of them was for a cameo appearance in the tag of the episode, where Corey has arranged the funeral for the lunch lady.
Yeah, it's disappointing what they've done with Mr. Turner. You almost got to wonder
ABC
if
didn't want to let him out of his contract.
You might. It feels like this episode should have taken place earlier on in the season, making sense why we never see Turner for like the rest of the school year. But it doesn't make a lick of sense why we haven't seen him up until this point. We've seen his classroom redressed.
We do. It gets a little fresh.
And they make it very clear that they take his classroom and switch it around for Feeney's classroom.
Yep.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Lawrence, good. Matthews, not bad. Hunter, bad. Turner, Bell.
Yeah. I love the immediacy of this conversation, making clear of where each character stands. Topanga's always going to do well at school. You know, Corey Matthews is always going to be trying, and Hunter not trying at all. And so I like that, you know, he's making it clear, hey, you're a junior. You need to start thinking about your goals, what you're going to be doing. He's like, yeah, I'm going off to college. Shawn is literally repeating Eric's storyline of, well, yeah, I know that's the next thing for me. The next thing is college. Of course it is.
Yeah, college in Hawaii. He's got a better shot outside the country.
Yes. Although it's an interesting relationship we the 48 states have with Hawaii, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We don't need to get into it. We're not that type of show. But yeah, I like how Turner's making it clear, hey, I care about you, don't blow me off. And I like how that is a reoccurring phrase you hear. You know, and Shawn's trying to defend himself. Like, I got people who care about me. And looks to Corey. Clearly, the Matthewses are planning their getaway romanticness in study hall.
Study hall, make out, Corey, Topanga. They're working on their marriage. Your parents are working on theirs. Yeah, because we do find out later that Chet and Werner are off on a romantic trip of some sort, and Shawn is supposed to be staying with the Matthews.
Yeah, but you know, it's Shawn has what he's always wanted. His family is trying to be a family, and even though everything is going the way they were supposed to, he has an emptiness inside of him. He's not motivated like his friends are. He took the SATs, and what does that mean for him now? You know, depending upon his score, he may think that's all I needed was a good score, but what does that mean?
Yeah, and it's interesting how they showcase this conversation that he has with Turner, because throughout last season, we see a lot of the way that they interact is John does come down what would be perceived as hard on him. There's no filter, so to speak. So what we see isn't really out of the ordinary.
No.
But the way it's presented, it's very easy to look at it and see that, yeah, this does seem kind of harsh.
If it's his legal guardian, that's one thing. But he's no longer his guardian.
Yeah.
It's not in his couch. It's in his classroom.
This to an outsider, it'd be very easy to walk in the room as Sherry does and say, yeah, that was pretty harsh dressing down. But to anyone who's in the know, because you know, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to. I have watched this episode dozens of times easily. And peek behind the curtain, good looking people. As in my days as a youth pastor, I've used this episode as a teaching illustration and a teaching aid many times as well. So I've viewed this episode from many different angles. But I tried to put myself in Sherry's shoes that we'll meet in a moment. And, when she comes in and talks about how that was really harsh and really rude to talk to him like that in front of everyone. From our perspective as viewers, Corey and Topanga are well aware of the relationship that John and Shawn have. They're, as Topanga says later, they're like brothers. What we see in that conversation is not harsh according to the relationship they have.
It's tough love.
But I can see how, from the outside perspective, it could come across that way. And if Shawn's not in the right frame of mind, it'd be very easy to be swayed to that perspective. If he's not in the frame of mind to be receptive of the message John's giving him, it'd be very easy to hear that perspective.
Well, let's get into it, Brett. Sherry enters the room. Hi, Shawn. Hey, Sherry.
Yes. Yes, Sherry, who we've never met before today, as all good 90s sitcoms and even into the thousands, the aughts.
Everybody's on first name basis.
Tamara Mello. Yes. Tamara Mello is our actress here. First and only time we'll see her on Boy Meets World. 37 acting credits to her name, including the Brady Bunch movie, Tom and Huck, Seventh Heaven, She's All That, Zoe Duncan, Jack and Jane, Jag, The Mentalist, Psych, Major Crimes, and more. So welcome, Tamara. We'll never see you again after this.
But she does an incredible job, and I believe every bit of her lines and all of her story.
She does. She is very believable in the role she is casting.
So yeah, exactly. She interprets what the conversation just was in a negative light of an adult judging you who has no right to judge you. I like how here's the problem. I think a way that a lot of people have talked about this episode is that, oh look, pretty girl convinces Shawn to join a cult. And really, it's not that. It's someone sees it in a different light than what Shawn has realized is normal. Because it's not normal for a teacher to talk to a student like that. It's not normal for a teacher to feel so able to just really, in a way, dress down a student. I'd even go as far for, in the context of our relationship. If you had spoken to me like this during the midst of youth stuff, that would have been inappropriate. Not alone, but, in our time of it just being, gosh, it still sounds bad, but in the times when, it was away from the role of I am youth pastor, you are student, when we just be sitting down talking together, you would say, hey, you need to think about this and that, and, work in these ways, and don't forget about this. And, but you would never call me out in front of people or right after as people are leaving, Tyler, you're sucking and you need to stop sucking. That was never your MO, but that's what she is seeing, is that him saying, you're not doing good enough and I'm judging you right now.
Yeah, and really, to pick up on that thread, a lot of the way this episode is scripted, it revolves around this idea of judging and being judged.
Blowing people off.
Shawn is all about not being judged and not wanting to be judged. And so it's not so much the pretty girl Tamara. I'm constantly going to be calling Shara Tamara here for this episode, but if I refer to Tamara, it's Sherry. But it's not so much the pretty girl convinces Shawn to join a cult. It's this idea of being able to be in a space where Shawn, who has lived a life of being looked down upon because of his life situation, can be surrounded by people who are going to go out of their way to not look down upon him and cast any judgment or aspiration upon him because of who
Yeah.
he is. And I've got lots more to say about that later, but that's the framework that this episode is built upon. And I think a lot of people miss that when they boil it down to, ooh, pretty girl gets Shawn to join a cult.
Yeah. No, and that's it's all around. That is what's going on. Is Shawn finally questioning who he is and what he believes in, and the roller coaster ride he goes on. And I like that he gets into Corey, and we'll get there. But of what do you believe in, Corey? Like, I like how he throws it back to him because they don't have those conversations, which I find so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But I like.
So we get to see the
Yes.
center.
Well, I like how she says, "Hey, why don't you come with me? We'll go to a place where I know I don't feel judged, and I think you'll find that you won't be judged either." And Shawn's interested in no judgment.
Yeah.
So
he wants to experience this feeling because he just felt
but
very
think
judged.
about it. Shawn, in the overall scope of the show, he is from the trailer park. He's been in multiple schools. He's constantly being told you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, and constantly being put down and constantly judged. And so often we see him brush it off, but we might be seeing in this episode that's all a facade. His confidence isn't real. And in this episode is breaking down the fact of there's core parts of his belief that aren't as stable as he thought they were.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. So the center is a very, very well done
It
redress
really
of Chubby's.
is.
We don't actually have it does. This is their best redress of Chubby's in the entire series. There are no stairs that you have to go down to get there.
They did a very good job of making it not look like Chubby's.
And they did a really,
but it's Chubby's.
I will say this. This is the most non-threatening, non-specific cult that the writers could come up with. There is no specific end goal in mind. There is no specific teaching or worldview that they are trying to get across beyond this idea that the cult leader is in search of lost souls to push his own worldview upon. You can look at the signs on the walls are very generic with just single words like strength and other stuff like that, and it's very bland, very simple concept, but it gets the point across. It's a very comfortable space, very judgment-free space.
And let's just address this real quick. We're not calling out any religious beliefs and saying this is a cult, that's a cult. That's not for us to judge in this moment. But speaking specifically on signs of cults, their goal is to look as normal as possible and to be as vague as possible and to not let you in on the knowledge of what they truly believe. So that way it's too late by the time you realize, oh my gosh, I might be in one. And so sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and
so it makes sense that for the space, it's vague. It's not saying this is what you need to believe. It's just this is a welcoming environment. Everyone is welcomed here. Let's talk about how to find inner strength.
Yeah, exactly. And good looking people. Cults had a much different in 1997. Cults had a much bigger impact in the zeitgeist. They were a much bigger threat to people, a much bigger perceived threat to people. They were far more insidious to people to look at. People saw them as something far more dangerous, something more to watch out for. It was a much more tangible thing. You had things like Heaven's Gates, David Koresh, and all of these things that you could point to actual people and actual events where you could use as a boogeyman. But even today, here 30 years later, there is still cult-like behavior and cult-like teaching that is out there that I'm not going to get into specifics because this is not the kind of podcast. But it is not hard to look around you in this world and see instances of this type of behavior that people can get attracted to and get sucked into very easily. And unfortunately, it's still there. It's a little bit different. It's not as stuck in, hey, let's go to this place so much as, hey, come on, let's follow this idea and follow these thoughts. If this episode were made today, the center might not actually be a physical place. They might just gather together, meet up here, and then meet up later online. But the same idea would be at the core. Shawn, as a teenager, would be sucked into this overall, we'll call it a teaching or a philosophy that Mr. Mac would be espousing and would be sharing that would look good on the outside, but at its core would be, as the episode puts it, eventually empty and not really giving him what he's searching for. But there's lots of great stuff out there about helpful about cults that goes much, much deeper than we can get into in our episode breakdown. So I encourage you to,
and as
Shawn,
follow Sherry to the center. Shawn has his antenna up and very concerned of where he is and is a little uncomfortable. There's a bunch of pretty girls around.
He's not fully buying in. I mean, he's there, but he's not fully buying in.
And
he's
I like that there's a point where he's like, so what is this place? What do we do here? It's like, well, it's kind of more of a hangout that we get together, we hug each other. He's like, well, I like hugs. And then the coldness that she starts to say, Mr. Max says that a hug is a burst of love. I'm bursting with love right now.
Yeah, and what she says, Mr. Max says about laughter being a mask, it's kind of dangerous because on the one hand, laughter is a defense mechanism, and people can and do use laughter to hide pain, to mask their torture, their pain, their trauma. But that isn't always true. There is genuine laughter out there. There are people who make jokes and who use laughter because it brings joy. And so the statement itself is not untrue, but it is not
that is the key for many cults, is that they will have a statement that is relatively correct, but it's not entirely correct. But when you hold on to the almost correct and saying this is the truth, and if everybody else in the room is saying it, then that becomes the truth. And again, there are so many examples in the world. We're not getting into them. But we meet Mr. Mac, Brett.
Yes. Let's meet Mr. Mac as he meets Shawn. I've got a clip of us meeting Mr. Mac for the very first time.
Hello, Sherry. Are you centered?
I'm centered, Mr. Mac.
And how about you, Shawn? Are you centered?
Nope, I'm totally off center.
Well, we'll have to see what we can do about that.
Good luck to you. See you, Mr. Mac?
Guilty as charged.
It's a nice place you got here. Seemed a little touchy-feely at first, but it's growing on me.
Well, it just goes to show, Shawn. You can't always go with your first instinct, Shawn. You've got to give people a chance, Shawn.
Really like my name. Don't you, Mr. Mac? Mr. Mac.
Well, there's plenty of room in case you decide to move in.
Move in? What are you, nuts?
This is where I live, Shawn. We all live here.
Oh, my bad. It's a cult.
that's Mr.
So
Mac.
I think what's interesting about this, and I haven't thought about this before, Brent, until right this moment. The center, this room they're in, is a living room.
Mhm.
And that's different than just being a hangout.
Yes.
And I like how Shawn immediately realized, oh, this is
This
a cult.
is not
And
just a hang space.
And Mr. Mac is so quick on his toes. He is a good talker and a good salesman in a way. And again, Sherry's making it clear. Well, I live here. The rest of us all live here. This is normal.
Yeah. And before we get too much deeper, Mr. Mac is played by Jerry Levine. Mr. Mac is first and only time we'll see him on Boy Meets World. He only has 28 acting credits to his name, including Charles in Charge, Teen Wolf, the movie with Michael J. Fox, not the MTV series, Iron Eagle, Born on the 4th of July, Seinfeld, Chicago Hope, Monk, Will and Grace, and more. He moved behind the camera into directing, and he's directed shows like Joan of Arcadia, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Monk, Raising Hope, Elementary, Hawaii Five-0, and others. He will come back and direct 5 episodes of Boy Meets World across seasons 6 and 7. But yes, he gives off this very unique vibe. It's not dangerous. It's not even necessarily creepy, but it's a very unique vibe that would get my hackles up. And we're not told explicitly, he's not introduced on camera to Shawn. So in some way, whether it was a sign-in sheet or Sherry told him ahead of time, I'm bringing Shawn over, he found out there was this new person here at the center, enough to know his first name to ingratiate himself to Shawn, and was using some very simple conversational technique to connect and let him know, I know who you are. I know who you are. Letting him know out there in the world, out there in school, people don't refer to you on a name-to-name basis, on a first-name basis. I can connect you on that level.
Yeah. Well, and we don't see a lot about their actual interactions and what they do outside of small moments. We don't see the moments around all this, like the group moments that they have. So there's a chance in some of their discussions is, well, have you seen any friends who are struggling at school? Maybe someone who could use some centering in their own lives. And there's a chance that Sherry said, well, I have a friend named Shawn. I've always had a crush on him, but, it seems like everyone's really hard on him and he keeps bouncing around. Well, Sherry, go approach him. See if he wants to come here. It's the type of coaching that gets done that is dangerous.
He could have been on the center's quote-unquote hit list for a while now, on the radar.
Essentially, Sherry's the one that introduces us to Mr. Mac, who he is, and then we meet Mr. Mac. Very much in a, you talk about him and he appears.
Yes. Say his name 3 times. But he calls Shawn for judging them.
Mr. Mac, Mr. Mac, Mr. Mac.
Poof. So, but yeah, he calls Shawn for judging them, and
should we get to
Shawn
that
to
clip?
give them a chance? Yes, let's do that.
We're just a place for people who need love in their lives.
I really have plenty of love. Thanks anyway.
Well, you're judging us, aren't you?
What?
The way your teachers, your family, and everyone else in your life judges you.
Yeah, I don't like that very much.
Because?
Because they don't really know me.
Well, why don't you get to know us before you judge us? If you do that for us, we'll do that for you.
Seems fair.
And he basically hits Shawn where he lives. Give us a shot. We'll be fair. We'll be fair and give you a shot. Basically, you go judgment free with us and give us a fair shake. we'll go judgment free and give you a fair shake. It sounds on the level to an average person.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem, is he's reminding Shawn in this moment of the way your parents, the way that your teachers and people of authority, the way they judge you. You don't like that, do you?
Mm-hmm.
Give us a chance. Don't judge us. We won't judge you. It's putting the emphasis on you don't judge us first, and thus we will then in return not judge you.
Mm-hmm.
A very complicated scene is the way I want to put it. Because in the realm of this show, for who we know Shawn to be, this interaction makes sense and is reasonable for him. Where it gets bonkers, Brett, is literally the next scene in The Real Chubbies.
Yes. The Real Chubbies with stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They have some setup before I get to the clip. It's the same day. Shawn has been at the center for like an hour. He's studying with a few girls from the center, and he greets Corey with a hug. We already see him changing personality. He hugs Corey. They don't greet each other this way.
Well, hello, and let's never say hello like that again.
And he's already starting to spout some of Mr. Mac's teaching. The length of a journey has nothing to do with its ultimate journey.
Shawn.
The length of a journey has nothing to do with its ultimate journey. Shawn.
That's nice.
You almost wonder if he had like a personal, like, sit down message time, and Mr. Mac went through the same spiel he goes through everyone who's brand new, making it clear this moment right here can be the thing that changes your life forever, Shawn.
Mm-hmm. I'd assume either it's one-on-one or, Shawn and Mr. Mac and a couple of people just kind of sitting around that couch area, or it was Mr. Mac getting up to give a talk from that little podium on the stage there.
Yeah, that too.
Either way, it was something that was very targeted for Shawn's benefit.
Yeah.
And so that's when Corey and Shawn decide to sit on these the stools at the counter, and we get this conversation.
Shawn, listen. Throughout our entire friendship, we've talked about everything, right? I mean, we've talked about girls, we've talked about movies, we've talked about music, but we've never talked about what you believe in.
I believe that I finally found a place where people let me be who I am, without trying to change me or need to know what my goals are in life. I mean, why do I need that?
Shawn, what do you believe in?
What do you believe in, Corey? Do you believe in a mother and a father and a comfortable house and a comfortable street because that's what you have? Well, I don't have that. So I found something with these people.
Yeah, but who are these people?
Stop trying to take away what I have. I don't do that to you.
We really have to be going.
I have a lot of questions about this place.
And you should check it out sometime, bud.
The first half of that conversation that Shawn and Corey are having in Chubby's is very
it's not
true,
a cult.
even still 30 years later. My teenagers don't talk with their school friends about what goes on in church life. I mean, even a few years ago, I talked to Toby and, hey, do you talk with your friends at school about what you believe in, about what your faith is like? No, we don't really talk about what we believe in. This is a going into sophomore. They don't really talk about stuff like that as teenagers still today. It's those types of discussions are not something that is commonplace. So that type of connection point is not something that is always there. And so it's very realistic for Shawn and Corey to have never had this type of a conversation.
Yeah, well, and I think it's complicated too. And I think the reason why many teenagers avoid talking about things like their faith and the things they believe in is because they don't want to alienate a friend that either thinks differently or has a bad experience with that. And especially just in the way in which our society right now is so politicized. It's understandable why a lot of teenagers don't want to talk about those things. It's difficult, and I find myself even a lot of times having to explain, well, I'm a Christian, but I'm not that kind of Christian. And so it's complicated, like, for a teenager to be able to express that. Like, I have a teenager right now in my groupings. I know for a fact will tell anyone what he believes. He doesn't care. He's very bold. He's very different than most of the teenagers I've ever interacted with, including myself. So at the end of the day, it's understandable that Corey and Shawn never had this discussion about what they believe in. And I think it's also one of those things that you hope would come up naturally, but it doesn't. And it has to come up because someone said, let's talk about this. It helps sometimes when when your relationship begins, your friendship begins in the same place. So it makes it easier. You don't have to talk about those things. But even some friends I made many moons ago in youth, I now have to have conversations with as adults when we run into each other. And I go, so do you still believe things we talked about before? Like, where do you stand? And we've had some very interesting follow-up conversations. But yeah, I can't believe you're going past, though, Brett, the way that Corey says hello to these young ladies.
I mean, hello, three girls. No, that's in.
I guess he doesn't
the
do the Vulcan sign just yet. I'm sorry. Yeah, but I like how Corey tries to be direct.
Yeah,
what do you believe?
Do you believe? You know?
Hello.
Sorry. I'm just trying to. Sorry, I want to get to the quote, but I want to make sure it was right here. So I like that Shawn makes clear. What do you believe in, Corey? Do you believe in a mother and a father and a comfortable house and on a comfortable street because that's what you have? Well, I don't have that. So I found something with these people. And that is a heartbreaking dividing point that has come up before in this show with Corey and Shawn of how can they be friends with the dynamics of how they were raised. Hutu and Tutsis, we just talked about this many weeks ago. But at the end of the day, Corey and Shawn still have to reconcile this difference. And I like how Corey's very clear of, well, who are these people? And I like that Corey has questions and Shawn says, then come check it out sometime.
Sherry is very quick to move Shawn along when Corey has questions to ask. Yeah.
To get him out of the way. Yep. But we cut immediately to a scene that could be next day, could have been a week later. We have no idea when because this show won't tell us. And this is maybe it's hard to say it's the most heartbreaking moment in the show, in the scene.
It's one of those.
But it is a heartbreaking moment because we go back to Turner's classroom for the last time as Turner's classroom, I will add. And Turner's just, hey, tell me what this is.
Conversational dialogue. Tell me about this center you've been spending all your time at.
And I like how Shawn's like, no. Well, why not? It's like, because you won't understand. And I like how Turner's like, well, if you can't talk to me about it, why? How do you know I won't?
I couldn't understand it. What about me says I couldn't understand it?
Yeah, and it's just this. It is that teenage, very young of going to, this is my defense and Shawn's defense in this argument. is
Yeah,
judging.
and there's this back and forth between them where Turner is he points out this sounds like a really open-minded group of individuals. You're judging. Well, you made the judgment first that I couldn't understand. What is it that you think you need? And
And I like how Shawn responds. All my life, I felt there was some part of me missing. I felt that everyone could tell and know, like there was some hole that everyone could see through it, like I wasn't finished or something. And I love that Turner's immediate response is, I never saw
if you
that
had
in you,
told
Shawn.
me that you felt like that, I could have done something.
Right. Which is a incredible response for both a parental figure
It's
and a
something
teacher
that
to
he
have in this moment. I never saw you this way, and you could always have told me, and I'm
Yes,
willing to
this is
help
something
you if
Mr.
that's how
Turner would
you
not have said a
felt.
year ago at the beginning of season 3. This is something Mr. Turner has picked up and grown with. And this is something that Mr. Turner says from the bottom of his heart. He has never seen Shawn feel like this. This is something Shawn has kept inside. And he would move heaven and earth to help Shawn work through this. And
Yeah.
And Shawn doesn't want to dwell
Exactly.
on who did or didn't say anything.
Well, I love that this is a response that's been built in, and you can tell it's been built in. I'm like, oh, well, let's not dwell on the past. And it's like, no, that's relationships. It's dwelling in the past and going, what happened wrong, and
It
how can
shapes
we
us.
move
It makes
forward?
us.
And to not dwell
To
in
not
that,
look at the past to as how it makes us, and to learn from it and to grow from it is to not be human. And Shawn's spouting that platitude he's learned from the center, which is it's a very it sounds very, very zen, very the word I'm looking for is escaping me, but very enlightened. But yes,
yeah,
but
very
all it is
postmodern.
it's a defense mechanism to get someone to stop
Right.
talking about anything that might be hurtful, that might force someone to look at
Yep.
something that needs to be examined, because it might be a little bit painful, because they have to get real and authentic.
Yeah. And I love that Shawn tries to defend the center that's filled with people who care about him and who feel like helps make him feel like he's like a person. And Turner's response to that is the center is filled with lost souls who has no belief system, who targets for some guy trying to bring to his way of thinking. The Shawn Hunter I know is one of the most unique individuals I've ever met. And if you let that place take away who you are, you've made the worst judgment you can make. You made the judgment. Those are the last words, Brett, that Mr. Turner will say to Shawn Hunter in this show. What powerful
They really
words
are.
to go out on.
They really are. They are sound, they are solid, and they are some of the most important words that Shawn could hear at really any low point in his life, because they build him up, they let him know what's real about him, and they let him know that he needs to make a difficult choice.
I mean, I know we're going to see Turner later on, Brett, but for this to be his last real acting scene in the show, it is both heartbreaking but also incredible to see. Ryder Strong does a great job, and so does Tony in this moment, really putting on the line of what their relationship is. And Shawn defensively walks away saying, I don't know who I am, John.
And sadly, I've known far too many teenagers who have spouted those words or words along those lines, and I've walked with a lot of teenagers through those same thoughts and those same life situations. And some of them I was able to get through to them and let them know that they were unique and they were strong. They were uniquely created to exist in this world for very good and very amazing reasons. And sadly, some I wasn't able to be the one to get through.
Mm-hmm. Well, Brett, there's only so many you can help become center. Sorry, I'm not trying to make a joke in your moment of
levity is
seriousness,
important.
but that is the fine line that you and I walk, and we talk a lot about out off mic. Is that in the roles that we have been called to be in for a lot of teenagers, we have to be careful that we don't make it about ourselves when it comes to their journey. We do play a part of it, but we can't dictate what they're going to do. We can't dictate the choices they're going to make. They have to make their choices, and all we can do is hope for the best, pray for the best, and trust that things are going to work out.
Yes, we are
and sometimes we have to let them walk out the door.
At best, we are tools, guideposts, guides along the journey. At worst, no, I don't want to think about it at worst, but at best, we are helps along the way. We are not the ones making the decisions.
So let's get to probably the best scene in the episode for comedy's sake.
Eric and Corey checking out the center. Oh, yes. Corey's a little worried about Eric, but Eric reassures him. It takes a pretty weak-willed and gullible individual to succumb to this scam.
Con men, fakes, charlatans, I say.
Oh, yes. But Eric very quickly is met with a pretty... See, Eric's the one. Eric is the one who is pulled into the center by a pretty face.
Here's money. Where's my room?
Yes. Not that type of place, Eric.
Yes, Eric is being led around as he learns more about the center.
Yes! My emotional palette is missing yellow and blue. Where's maroon?
We learn that the center has a what is it? A tanning and hugging center in the Bahamas.
No.
Yes.
My new nut name is Sunflower Fortunato.
And this is where Corey meets some girls and gives them
Hello.
The fake Vulcan salute. The real one's like this.
I was gonna say, why are you doing
that's
the
what
fake
Corey
one?
does.
That's what Corey does.
This one's the real one.
I don't think I can do the fake one. I can do the real one. I can't do the fake one.
Yes, Corey greets some girls with his fake Vulcan salute. Hello. I've got to find someone to assign that ringtone to.
Hello.
For their text notification.
I will say that Corey should be able to do the Vulcan greeting like really well because he likes James T. Kirk. He and Turner get into an argument because he believes Star Trek is real.
But some people in this world cannot do this. There are people who cannot.
That's true.
Maybe Corey
I have
cannot do this. I don't know. Kind of weird that he can do this, but
maybe.
I don't know.
Okay, but also that really could be a Ben Savage thing. He himself might not know how to do it properly.
Ben just really doesn't know how to, and this is what he did the day of. I don't know. But anyway, either way.
Yes, but I do love that Shawn greets Corey, and Shawn is very upset that Corey's
he invited him to check it out.
Corey cannot understand, just like Turner. Thus, why is he here?
Yeah, Corey's come to check out the center. Shawn invited him to come check it out if he had questions. And here he is. Check it out. But Shawn immediately is cheesed off. Little bit odd. I understand it, but a little bit odd in light of him saying, hey, come check it out sometime. Apparently that was not an honest invitation.
Well, but it's that defensiveness of, hey, check it out, have an open mind. What are you
Yeah.
doing here?
Yeah,
You should not
this
be
isn't a
here.
place for people like you who know what they believe in.
Right. It's judging Corey of what he
Yeah.
should or should not
But
be.
in their interaction, Shawn admits to Corey he's here because he's still looking for what he believes in. He hasn't found it yet. Even though he told John he found people that make him
Right.
feel good, he hasn't found what he's looking for.
I like how Shawn tries to be defensive, saying, it's not like I'm doing drugs. And Corey steps on that and immediately says, it's just like you're doing drugs. He's messing with your head. He's telling you what to believe. And eventually, you're just going to be his. How can't you see that? And of course, we do the classic. It's right behind me, isn't it?
Mr. He will be there every time you turn around. Allow me to demonstrate.
Yes, every time you turn around, he'll be there. Let me
Hello.
demonstrate.
With another Vulcan salute.
Welcome to the center. Oh, he's very
Who do
powerful.
I make the check out to?
Who do I make the check out to?
And here's where I want to talk a little more about judgments. I'm going to get in a little soapbox here, good looking people. So bear with me for a couple moments.
It sounds like you're judging.
I am. Here's why. All this episode, we have built this story around Shawn not wanting to be judged and the center being a place completely free of judgments. And this is nirvana for a lot of people. They want to be free of a world of judgment. And that is a worthwhile endeavor. That is a worthwhile goal and something that can be striven for to a point. But if there is no judgment in life, we're going to run into a big problem very quickly. Because if there's no judgment being made, there is very quickly going to be no value judgment. How do we determine right from wrong? How do we determine what is good or bad, what is helpful or harmful? The center is creating a place where throwing judgment out the window and starting with no judgment based on character, which is a phenomenal thing. No judging based on character is a bad thing. Judging based on individual, on appearance, on weight, on temperament, on anything to do with an individual person, on personality, on whatever, on an individual, judgment based on an individual, however you want to put that. Yes, absolutely atrocious. Do not judge anyone based on that. But you need to have judgment in this world of situation. You need to be able to judge thought process. You need to be able to judge behavior. You need to be able to judge what is going on in the world as to whether it is beneficial or harmful. And the center has created a space where they took that idea of no judgment of character or no judgment of individual, and they're applying that unconsciously for a lot of the kids and intentionally for Mr. Mac to reach out and beyond, to be the shield of, we don't judge the person, so you can't judge our entity. And they've created the shield. And it's admirable to want to live in a world where we don't judge people. It's something that we all should strive for, where we're not judging people based on people. But we need to be wise in how we see the world. We need to be as innocent as doves and as sly as foxes. We need to be able to look at the world and see and be able to make the quality judgment that says this is helpful, this is harmful, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. Not that we're making judgment that are this behavior that will make us someone who is anti-Semitic, for instance. but we need to be able to make judgment that will keep someone safe. A judgment call that will help someone, that will guide someone to make a better decision. And the center has created a space that will not allow that. And there are spaces in the world around us 30 years later that have argued for a space that will not allow that. Take some time when you're done listening to this, or pause right now and think it through. Are there spaces in the world around you that have taken this idea of don't judge me as a person and taken that to an extreme, to don't judge anything around you? Just an exercise. That's my soapbox.
Well, thank you for your soapbox. Your judgment-free judging
Don't judge
soapbox. I will say, though, Brett, that there's a difference between love without judgment and not judging at all, but then judging people for judging. Because loving without judging means that you care enough about the individual and what they're dealing with to have compassion on them, and not getting bogged down into how horrible or what they're doing wrong, but just saying you have value because you are you. You are loved. And there's a difference between that and what they're doing, which is, well, I don't want to be judged, so don't judge me. Well, that seems weird. Oh, you're judging me for being weird? That is a toxic environment to be in. And I like how you see a progression, I think, within this cult. That Sherry, when she's at school, seems super normal. Hey, Shawn, how's it going? Hey, Sherry. And that seemed weird. It did seem weird, didn't it? Hey, come to this place. And then you hear the programming. Yep. And so I guess my point in saying that, Brett, is at the end of the day, Sherry and Shawn and all these other teenagers are being fed, this is what you say when people try to say these things. And the best one they have, the best defense he's teaching them is, if it sounds like they're trying to confront you, just say, you're judging me. Because that's the one that Shawn leans on in the most.
Yep.
And then he says something to the effect of, it seems like it's like this. Go, no, it's not like this. This is much worse for me to be involved with. But back to the slightly silly scene that's in the center, Brett. Because I like that Corey goes, can I go to that room? No, that's the celebrity room.
Yes. Which got me wondering which celebrities are in Philadelphia every now and then to visit the center. Because Feeney's been trying to shut it down for a while.
I don't think there is a celebrity that actually goes there. I think Mr. Mac just makes it seem like, sorry, you can't go in there. You're not a celebrity. There's a very special celebrity. In fact, whenever the celebrity comes, everyone needs to leave the room so that way they feel comfortable.
It's a great joke, but on the whole, it's an interesting wrench in Mr. Mac's philosophy. If everyone's the same and no one judges one another and they're all on the same level at the center, there shouldn't be a celebrity room.
Correct.
But it's
the slickest guy I've ever seen.
It makes for a fun joke. He is the slickest guy Corey's ever seen.
It's so weird because then Shawn says, I'm not a prisoner here. I can leave anytime I want. That's what a cult leader wants you to think, Shawn.
But he's been programmed to not want to leave.
Correct. Why would he want to? There's pretty girls hugging him constantly.
Yeah. And see, that's where we get into this whole pretty girl made Shawn went in. Shawn got in because he felt judged and he found a space where he wasn't feeling judged. Shawn stayed in because he felt comfortable in that space. From not being judged, not feeling judged, from feeling comfortable with the people who were there, from it being a very surface level connection with other people and not having to think too deeply about anything.
Right. Well, but how often have we heard about the fact that Shawn's home life is not good? And Verna and Chet tend to fight like cats and dogs. They're away right now to work on their relationship.
I want to be normal, Spud.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't help but think that when Shawn goes home, things aren't as loving as they seemed in that first couple episodes and at Thanksgiving time. So, and Shawn has always tried to fill the gap of his affection for women with just pure lust and just the physical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's in a place where he's surrounded by a bunch of pretty girls who, he's not trying to flirt with and hit on, he's having genuine conversations with, that is appealing for a guy like Shawn, who we know is deeper than what people tend to think of him.
Yep.
Yes, but apparently Shawn is officially signed up to be a member for life.
Yes. Either, and it's always a little confusing, either did he sign up or did Mr. Mac welcome him as just a kind of an open invitation?
That's a great question, but
either way, he's announced as one.
Yes.
And that's a clear door closing, and he tells Corey to go to leave.
Yeah. And again, you have to wonder how much time has he actually spent at this place. I mean, if he started from Monday to now Friday, I guess one could argue
Chet can't have more than a week's vacation banked as his school janitor job at this point. So I'd say Monday to Friday.
He's no longer the janitor. But then, Brett, we get to, in my opinion, my favorite scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts fast and quick. It's Corey and Feeney and Amy in the backyard. And Corey being very concerned, telling his father and his mother and Feeney that it's like he's not even listening to me anymore. I don't know what to do. And Alan, of course, is thinking, well, I'll just go over there and drag him out.
Yeah. Alan's just very practical, matter of fact. All right, fine. Because remember, Shawn is supposed to be staying with them while Chet and Werner are out of town. Shawn is supposed to be there with them, not hanging out the center and staying there.
Well, and then Feeney's not even Alan, we need to think about this. He goes, no, I've wanted to get this thing shut down. Let's go. And then Shawn walks in.
Yeah, Shawn walks up with Eric. Apparently, Eric
he wasn't sincere.
He wasn't. Mr. Mac felt he wasn't sincere. He was just in it for the hugs. Well, yeah. Oh yes, but but there's a scene here where Shawn and well, before Shawn and Mr. Feeney talk, Alan threatens to let's get Shawn in the house and just tie him up and keep him there.
Yes.
But Mr. Mac said people would try to talk him out of his beliefs because the Matthews had the gall to even bring up the idea.
Mm-hmm.
But he's already stated he doesn't know what he believes. And up to this point, he's not articulated any.
Yeah. But I love that immediately Amy's response is, Shawn, we love you.
Yeah, she's not trying to push anything on him. She's not trying to counter or really fight back. She's just saying, look, Shawn, we love you.
Yeah. It's a very hurt we love you. Almost like, how could you think this of us?
Mm-hmm.
And very coldly, robotically, if you will.
Exactly. It's not Shawn.
Mm-hmm.
It's the center talking through him. And then he turns to Mr. Feeney, and we have a very, very brief but very important conversation between Mr. Feeney and Shawn.
Shawn, these aren't beliefs. This is just a way to escape a life that doesn't have beliefs.
That's a judgment.
You're damn right it is.
What's wrong with me trying to find something to believe in?
Look, Shawn, I'm all for your search for spirituality, okay? But you don't seem to realize that Mr. Mack is conducting his own search for lost souls that he can influence and manipulate.
He said you'd say that.
Yes, I'm sure he has given you a thought for every occasion. Excuse me.
I love George Feeney talking. This is not the teacher in the classroom.
No, this is not Mr. Feeney to Mr. Hunter. This is George to Shawn.
Yeah, this is him trying to tell him, I care about you. I care if you desire to seek spirituality. I care that you want to figure out what you believe, but that place is not going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, he says, that's a judgment. And pardon my French, I'm quoting, you're damn right it is. It is a perfect response from an adult who cares about someone.
Yes. And it is not language that Mr. Feeney throws around lightly. It is said to make an impact. And when he leaves, Alan and Amy kind of they push a little bit more. They don't nag. They don't attack.
Mm-hmm.
Amy wants to know, why do you need to believe in the center so strongly? Because throughout all of everything Shawn said, Shawn has not articulated anything he believes in. Shawn has articulated that he's found a place where he feels welcome. Well, he felt welcome in the Matthews home for years.
Right.
And he's come back around to this many times. Shawn has articulated that he's felt lost and empty to Mr. Turner for the first time in his life. He's articulated that to him and didn't want to talk anymore about that. Shawn has articulated some cliches that the center has taught him to avoid any deeper thought, any critical thinking of his worldview and how he interprets what's going on around him and what he puts his trust into in the world, what he puts his faith into, what he sees and what he is, what he expects and believes the world to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so Amy asks him a simple question. Why do you need to believe in the center so strongly? This place that you have been around for, we'll say, a week, that you didn't know existed before this, that when you first got there was a cult that you were ready to walk out of. I'm reading subtext into it here.
Yes.
Why do you need to believe in the center so strongly? And Alan kind of chimes in. What did you believe in before you met the people of the center? And yes, it's 1997, so still fairly Judeo-Christian values present in American television. Did you believe in God? And those are the only questions. They're questions. They're open-ended questions presented to Shawn. They're not attacks. They're genuine inquiries for him.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good time for us, Brad, to get into, other than the fact that my kitty cat clearly wants attention. You should tell Abby
if
this.
You're listening and not watching, you should check out the YouTube.
My cat's all over my screen.
Check out the cat for Tyler.
You got to tell Abby that literally the cat is all over here.
Oh yeah.
So one of the biggest criticism I've heard about this episode is, Shawn goes from one cult to another cult because immediately, quote unquote, Alan is pushing God on him. And I want to push back on that because he's not saying, well, do you believe that Jesus died on the cross for your sins? Do you believe that he is your ticket out of hell? That's never brought up. That's never stated. And so my pushback on this is Boy Meets World has a habit, and I know other shows in this time do, of just going with an overall God. Just saying God. That's it. There's nothing beyond that. There's nothing about Jesus, Holy Spirit, anything like that. No one asks, is he baptized? all of these things, are you going to church? Are you going to youth group? These are not the things that are being pushed on him. It's just as simple of, well, do you believe in God? Not saying, well, you have to. It's just, well, is that part of your belief? Like, is that part of your understanding of how the world came to be and who you are? Um,
Yeah.
and it's a fair question to ask when it comes to, well, what do you believe in? Before the center, what did you believe?
Yeah, and it's part of a series of questions. It's not the only question asked. It's what did you believe in before? Did you believe in God? It's a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Because in 1997, American entertainment was still, like I mentioned, it was still fairly influenced as far as creators were mainstream by a basic Judeo-Christian worldview. If you surveyed most television creators that were running behind the scenes, you'd find a lot of Judeo-Christian worldview. Michael Jacobs, as I understand it, is at least at that time, I'm not sure if he still is practicing Jewish.
Makes sense.
Man. I'm not sure if ethnically he is or not. I don't know the man that well myself. So it would not surprise me. I mean, he actually, when we get to it in season 6, he is the rabbi in the NICU. But he writes himself into the episode as the father of faith right there. But so it's not a surprise that the showrunner is going to put that question in for a character. But yeah, it's not forcing a step from one cult to another. It's just asking a question. Did you believe in this?
Yep.
What did you believe in beforehand? Did you believe in this? It's not something they've ever talked to Shawn about before. It's just asking. From the dialogue, I would insert Alan and Amy probably do themselves.
Yep.
I would assume the Matthews probably are at least Christmas and Easter churchgoers.
Yeah. Well, they're pretty open about
year.
Those type of situations. So
when they talk about spirituality or faith, they do tend to lean more towards a mainline church going experience. So I would assume that would be where their faith rests.
Yeah.
And it would be only natural that they would ask Shawn, hey,
right,
do you believe in God? So yes, it's not forcing him to step into another cult. It's just asking.
Right. But it's also, Brett, he's been over to their house long enough and they've had enough conversations with him as well. So if this is the first time in years that they've been interacting with him and has been staying with them and they know him, that they're talking about faith, it's not because they're pushing it on him. It's because he is having a faith crisis and they're trying to figure out how do they help him through this, which, and I'll say for a lot of people who they have, I hate to say it like this, but they have a bare bone basic understanding of what faith is, that God created everything and that Jesus is out there. He saved people from their sins. And that's it. That's as far as their faith goes. They know they can pray to him and talk to him and ask him for things. And sometimes he answers, sometimes he doesn't. If that's what the Matthews faith is, that's okay. There's no judgment from this podcast on that type of faith. It's all right. But for those people that are in that moment, they are not going to have an easy time trying to help someone through that faith crisis. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. And again, this episode moves so quickly that we can't stay in this little bit, even though this is great follow-up and it's great conversation for Shawn. And we got to get to the next scene where this is where it all really comes to a head.
It does, yes.
Before we get that, again, in the little bit of acting that we get from everybody in this episode, Betsy and Rusty bring it in these moments. And we're going to see it even more in the hospital. But when these actors are pushed to have these moments, man, do they deliver.
They don't get much, but they eat.
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Feeney comes back after answering that phone call that took him away from his conversation with Shawn.
And again, great acting on his point, because Alan goes from "Do you believe in God?" and Shawn's stuttering, and looks up, sees George, and wonders, "Is everything okay?" And we find out that
No.
Jonathan Turner has had an accident. Again, amazing acting, and they all say, "We got to get to the hospital right now." And Shawn kind of turns and says, "I'll meet you there." And Corey's like, "What do you mean?" And it's like, "I'll meet you there." And then we see Topanga again. And she is once again here, but in a good way.
Yes. As much as we complain about Topanga not being here, it's okay in this episode because her absence is not a knock against her in this story.
But also, when she is asked to bring it in this episode, she does.
Yes. She knows Shawn. She has her place in this story, and Danielle hits it.
And I love this back and forth of, why isn't he here? How could he not be here? They're like brothers. And I just love that you almost feel like Corey's faith in his relationship with Shawn is really, for the first time, shaken. And his understanding of what the world is shaken. But also, someone who means a lot to him is sitting in a hospital bed right now.
Exactly. And as he tells Shawn when he comes in, because he went to Mr. Mack for support, and he brings Mr. Mack in, Shawn tells him he couldn't face this alone. And Corey tells him he's beginning to see that Shawn was even more alone than he ever could see.
Yeah. I love that Mr. Mack tries to play the nice guy to Feeney. "I'm Philip Mack. Shawn says I could be of help."
Feeney.
"You don't belong here." This is so insidious, Brett, because his response is, "One of my children invited me, and I'm also I'm always here for him, as long as any of my child who call for me, as well for any of other children who call for me." That is gross. You can refer to someone as your student, your youth, one of your kids. Referring to someone as "my children," that better be your child.
Yeah, he is bordering on. No, we'll keep it gross. It's insidious, like you said.
And our last joke of the episode, Brett, "I want to come back."
No. Yes, Eric can't go back. There's no going back for him.
Yes. Again, another insidious. To Mr. Feeney, "I just want you to know, I forgive you for trying to shut us down." And
you
forgive me.
And I clipped a chunk of this. I don't remember
That's
exactly
okay.
where it starts, but
we got this.
I clipped this part, so.
I just want you to know that I forgive you for trying to shut us down.
You forgive me?
Easy, George. Come on, he's just trying to get a rise out of you. Look, you're not dealing with gullible little kids here now, buddy. Now, you brought Shawn down, thanks. Now, why don't you just take a hike back to Conland?
Now, do you see how judgmental these
No,
people are?
listen. You see. A judgment I made a long time ago is that Shawn Hunter is the best friend that my kid ever had. And I will kill to protect Shawn Hunter from people like you.
Alan, he would love a lawsuit.
I think there's a lot of anger here.
Sorry, one last joke. I forgot about that.
Yes. But yeah, Alan is the dad I want to be in that situation. And Shawn gets to see that. Shawn gets to see smarmy Mr. Mac try to glad handle his way in and drive a wedge between all of these adults who care about Shawn and Shawn. And Alan's not having any of it. He is willing to resort to force to point out that Shawn is the best thing that ever happened to his son. And he will do whatever it takes to protect him from people like Mr. Mac. And, I'm not going to sit here and say that violence is ever the answer to anything, but I do not fault any father for standing up to someone like Mr. Mac in the situation. I will applaud them for that type of thing, for that type of choice. Because in those shoes, I would do the same thing.
Well, and it's so subtle, Brett, but when you've watched this clip the hundreds of times that we have,
Oh, yes.
you start to pay attention to what the characters are doing behind. Because I love Will Friedle and Daniel Fishel's acting in this moment. Because I'm sure they see in the script, Alan pushes him and he gives this speech, but there's always a difference between the intensity of, you're supposed to be reacting to, oh my gosh. It's the desire to protect in a way that the characters have not seen before from Alan. Because Alan is either the happy-go-lucky dad who's just spending time with his kids, to the reflective father who, is realizing he's made a mistake, to the kind of flying off the handles a little bit because someone's ticked him off. But this is a controlled but aggressive, protective Alan Matthews.
This is a side of Alan Matthews these kids are not used to seeing. And this is a side of Rusty that these actors are probably not privy to seeing on set.
I agree completely. And again, just incredible acting in all around. And I love the writing in this that, Feeney's like, Alan's like, hey, Feeney, he just wants to get a rise out of you. Hey, buddy, thanks for dropping him off. But, go back where you came from. Yeah.
Go back to Conland.
But,
yeah. You're not talking with gullible little kids here.
And to go back into the characters themselves, not just the actors, but to see the reactions that Shawn has to Alan in this moment of, this is someone I will kill for. I'm sure you have who you're willing to kill for list, Brett. It's a very short, very close-knit group of people you're willing to go to jail for on their behalf. I have my list as well. But, it's not you don't want to be in the protective state, but when one of your people in your core, the ones that you love with all your heart, and they're being taken advantage of, and the person that's taking advantage of them is right in front of you. Like I think back to the situation with the girls' gymnastics and their way that many of the fathers responded, saying, please give me 30 seconds alone with that man so I can teach him a lesson. I want to give out the justice in this moment. I get that rage.
Yep.
I understand that.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that Amy's able to bring him back down.
Yes.
Because we know that he could
and
continue and go off the handles and make this worse. And Amy does not want that for him.
Yes, we do. No. and I love, before we move on, I love the fact that he shuts down, Mr. Mac tries to go into his Shawn's, you see the judgment, and he shuts him down right away and brings out the fact that the judgment I made, and in that comment, he points out both to Mr. Mac and to Shawn that there is a place for making a
Mhm.
value judgment that is not based on someone's inherent value to show that they are wrong, but to make a judgment that says this person
Yeah.
is worth something.
Well,
and he shuts him down right away, but doesn't even let
to
him finish
go
the
back
sentence.
to season 1, Brett, Corey thinks the best thing for him to do is to keep the secret from his parents and Shawn's parents about what's going on with him, and to let him keep doing this. And his dad tries to help him understand why Shawn's doing what he's doing and how he could be a good friend. It's a judgment he made to help his son, and throughout the course of the show, of helping his son through this friendship as they try to tackle their differences. There's a lot of context and a lot of stuff we don't always get to see, but again, acting in this moment is incredible on everyone's account, including Mr. Mac.
Yeah, and he extricates himself from all of this, and he has this very brief monologue that, if Shawn had been there for, would have basically done it in for Mr. Mac's control over him, I think. For kids who feel lost and have an emptiness in their lives, I'm here to give them a sense of belonging. And in any event, there are many more just like him. He lays it out right there, all the cards on the table. I'm only in it for as many as I can get. No more veneer of nice guy here. I'm just in it for as
And
many
of course,
as I
we
can
have
gather.
a great response from George, not Feeney, George. You can't have Shawn.
You can't.
And I
have
almost
Shawn.
feel like this is like maybe the moment in the backyard was the first time that Feeney found out that Shawn was interacting with the center, and now we're getting the more defensive side of him, who he's willing to kill for. Yes,
Yeah.
but Mr. Mac is showing his sliminess and snake-likeness, for lack of better wording. But then we cut Brett to let's go with the most heartbreaking moment in the episode. Heart-wrenching. Because
that's a good one for it.
Shawn is freaking out, rightfully so, because this is someone who he loves, is sitting in the hospital, and Corey and Shawn, or Topanga and Shawn are, Topanga and Corey are trying to help him see this is happening. This is real life. Like, we are here helping you try to deal with this. He's like, no, I need Mr. Mac.
Yeah, Turner's bandaged up on the bed, unconscious at best, comatose at worst. Shawn is being forced to confront reality without a safety net, and Corey and Topanga are just it's tough love. Corey is showing him what a hug really is. This is a hug. This is when you hug someone, when you care about them and you want them to know that. And he grabs him and he's staring him in the face. Turner took care of you. He loves you and you love him. Is that real or is the center real? You decide, but you cannot go. We can go. And they leave in the room to figure it out. All of this episode, Shawn has been trying to figure out what's real, what's not. What does he believe in? What doesn't he believe in? And here he is at the crossroads, at the precipice, so whatever imagery you want to use. Here he is at Turner's bedside, someone that has been a father figure, a brother, a teacher, basically been everything to him that he has looked up to, someone he has loved, who has loved him in return, who has been there for him when he has been at some of his lowest points, someone who has poured into him over and over again, who has been there for him without him asking to be there, someone who's made mistakes, someone who has allowed him to make mistakes, someone who is now broken before him, and it is a very real possibility that will no longer be there. And Shawn in this moment has to confront all of that.
Sorry. If you can cut out all the times I try to go, if it's okay, I want to put on my youth pastor's hat for just 2 seconds.
Go for it.
No one can tell you what to believe. You can listen to a variety of people saying this is what is the truth, this is the truth, that's the truth. You can't figure out what you believe unless you spend that time alone in a space that gives you the ability to get into that. And I think that's what has been missing for Shawn this whole episode is he keeps having people tell him this is what you need to believe, or hey, tell me what you believe. And he doesn't, it's like his brain doesn't want to work in this moment. And at this point, he has to face what's going on. What is the reality? And why he's finding comfort in the center. And at the end of the day, good looking people, again, no one can force you to believe whatever you don't want to believe. You have to make the call to believe the things that you believe. And it's okay if people disagree with your beliefs. They don't have to believe what you believe. But if you can rest your head at night in peace and shalom and say, I am comfortable with where I'm at, I am comfortable with what I believe in, then great. Well, hello. Clearly, my puppy dog also needs to be a part of the podcast. But yeah, so at the end of the day, good-looking people, no one can force you to believe whatever you don't want to believe. And, if you end up finding comfort in a cult, then you find comfort in a cult. You have to live with that. And you have to accept if people have judgment over you on decisions that you may or may not be making. It's whether you're going to value those people's judgments or not. So, at the end of the day, you have to make the choices. That's what life is, and that unfortunately is what belief is all about. Is you making a decision to believe what you feel you need to believe. So I'll take my hat off now. And do you have this clip, sir?
I do. Shawn does go over to the bed, and before I entered I wasn't able to clip the entire monologue because it runs a little longer than the minute I try to keep these under. But I do want to say the entire monologue is very powerful. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, but good looking people, Disney can be very atrocious. I did find out this week 2 of our episodes are currently completely banned worldwide on YouTube because YouTube wants to have me take like 20 minutes of content out for 5 minutes of actual clips of their content from these 2 episodes. So I'll have to work on that later on.
Fair use act, jerk faces.
Yeah, I know. By the way, which ones were they? If you're on YouTube, you cannot hear us talk about Harley Kiner's sister.
What?
And yeah. And I forget which other one.
It's a conspiracy.
They're both in season
They don't
2.
want people to know about Teresa Kiner.
One of the segments is like 19 minutes long for a 1-minute clip. They want us to clip out 19 minutes for 1 minute worth of clip.
It's like a quarter of our episode.
I know. Anyway, but so that's one of the reasons I try to keep them to a minute or less.
Fair.
Because Disney's ridiculous. But Shawn's entire monologue is powerful. I'm sure you can find someone who's able to upload it to YouTube if you don't want to watch the whole episode. But why would you not want to watch the whole episode?
Because Disney won't go after them. Everybody's trying to shut us down, man.
Don't. But I love when he says, "Don't do this to me, John. I don't do alone real good." And then he sits down, and this is where we'll pick it up.
John, even when I was at the center, it was all the things that you taught me that made me wonder if it was the right place for me or not. But you didn't teach me enough. You and Corey and my parents and the Matthews and the handful of people who really care about me, so don't blow me off, John. Don't blow me off, God. I've never asked you for anything, and I never wanted to come to you like this. But don't take Turner away from me. He's not done yelling at me yet. God, you're not talking, but I know you're here. So I'm gonna talk. And you can listen. God, I don't want to be empty inside anymore.
It is such a powerful moment. And I think what that comes back down to is, what do you believe in? Do you believe in God? I think it's just been a worry of his that it's just going to be another person, another being, another creation that is blowing me off. And I understand for those out there, again, I'm slightly putting on my youth pastor hat again, that it's easy to believe that God is blowing people off. When bad things happen, I understand that people wonder, how could God allow something bad to happen? I share those sentiments, even as, thank you, Kat, even as a believer, as a teacher of the faith. I understand those worries, those concerns, and those heartbreaking moments. I promise you that who I understand to be God is not blowing you off if you are calling out to him. But it's also understandable that we might not be hearing him back. It is okay to reach out and try to get help, but it does come back to what we were saying before, in that at the end of the day, you have to accept that. Wow. What I'm trying to get to, Brett, is it's all about a choice that we all have to make. A choice we all have to make every single day. And the choice that you make and what you're going to do and how you're going to interact in the world all comes down to what you believe in, what's at the core of who you are.
I mean, it's all there on the screen. Shawn he doesn't do alone very good, but even while he was lonely, everything that John had taught him was there. And of course, this can't be a sad ending. Mr. Turner's hand does grab Shawn's. And I really resonate. I've always resonated with what he says at the end there. I don't want to be empty inside anymore. Because it does harken back to him telling John about feeling empty. But I think it's pretty universal. Both what he told, when he told John about feeling empty inside, I'm pretty certain that at some point everyone who's walked the earth has felt that way. And I'm relatively certain that everyone can resonate with that. And if everyone has felt like that, everyone can resonate with Shawn here, that they've reached that point somewhere where they don't want to feel that way anymore. And Shawn here has shown that he's tried to find other ways where he doesn't want to feel empty inside. And here he is going towards what he knows is going to help him not be lonely anymore. He's stepping back into what is familiar, what he knows to be love, where he is known to be receiving love. And so we get to our tag. Shawn is confident he's going to be fine. And I love the way, after he's had a little mislead with he's going to go back to the center to pick up his things, I love what he tells Mr. Mack. If I was an empty person who didn't have anything to believe in, I might go with you. because that would be easy. Well, I'm done with easy, and I'm done with empty, and I'm done with you. And I just think for his character, especially for this episode, those are very profound words. For where he is as a high school junior, to be able to make that type of a statement, for any human being to be able to come to that realization that I've been skating through, I've been empty, and to fall into this easy path would be so simple. But I'm done with that, and I'm ready to do what needs to be done with easy, to be done with empty, and to take this other path where I don't have to be that. That takes work. That takes confidence. That takes courage. And for everyone who has taken those steps, who's taken that path, my hat is off to you, because that does not come lightly. That takes a lot of conviction. And so, Shawn, I know you're a fictional character, but you can be a motivation to a lot of people in this moment. And Mr. Mac can go slink back to his center cave with his tail twixt his legs.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully Feeney shuts it down in between seasons.
I'm assuming that's what happens at the end of the season.
I'm going to assume so in my headcanon, because we never do hear about it again.
Yeah. Well, we didn't hear about it before this episode either.
Very true.
Yes. Well, we'll always be here for you, Shawn. Shawn,
I know. Mr. Mac.
Yeah. But I will.
That's nice.
I will say that Shawn having this moment of Mr. Turner squeezing his hand is a sign for him to understand that everything is going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other ways outside of going to church and opening up a Bible and believing in God to see signs of hope and peace in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Our family's big into redbirds. When we see redbirds, we tend to breathe a little bit easy because we believe it's a sign that it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
It helps when we drive by the same places almost on a daily basis, so we know where there's redbirds living. But a lot of times I'll see a female redbird, and those are much harder to see, and that gives me peace more often than not. So yeah, there's many things to believe in, Brett, and doesn't always have to do with faith, but how you are able to go through the world and the judgments you make on this world, and how you deal with other people. All is about the core of who you are and what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
But Brett, I don't know about you, but I believe that's the end of our episode.
I believe that too.
Which one of you brainwashed nuts validates parking?
So, Tyler, do you have any deep dives for us?
People. Am I the only one who read the summer reading list?
What is a cult, Brett? Webster's dictionary defines it as it's a great devotion to a person, idea, object, movement, or work. Yes. It's sometimes a religion regarded as unorthodox, and it's a system of religious beliefs and rituals. It's a system for the cure of a disease-based dogma set forth by promulgator. Essentially, at the end of the day, what a cult is, based on all the definitions out there, is a cult is a set of beliefs within an institution or around a person, and it's all about you devoting yourself to that thing. And the difference between cults and religion is that when you leave a religion, or if you don't give to the religion the way maybe in your heart you believe you should, no one's going to knock on your door saying, "Where's our money?" And no one's going to knock on your door saying, "Don't say bad things about our cult." So if you interact with a group and if you say, "No, thank you," that's a religion and they leave you alone. If they continue to pursue you and hound you, and you tend to think that they are trying to get something from you, that's going to be a cult. If a group of people believe that there is a person that is above everybody else, and that person that is not a deity, but however is still just as important as a deity, that's a cult. And if someone believes themselves to be super duper special, that they have answers that no one else has, and you should listen to me and only listen to me, that's a cult leader. I'm not calling anyone out. I'm not saying this is a cult or a cult leader, but use your eyes, people. They are out there, they're in the world, but we're not here to call anyone out specifically. Just be aware.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If advancement in your organization, your belief system requires you to pay to advance, in your faith system, yeah, it might be in a cult.
Yes. So here are 10 signs, Brett, that you may or may not be in a cult.
All right.
Absolute
Beautiful setup.
authoritativism without accountability. So if the person who is in charge, or the person or the grouping is without accountability, that's most likely a cult. Zero tolerance for criticism or questions. No judging. Lack of meaningful financial disclosures regarding budget. So if you're asked to give a bunch of money and they are unaccountable for what happens to said money. Unreasonable fear about the outside world that often involves evil conspiracies and persecutions. Don't tell people what we believe, because if you tell them what we believe, they are going to be unhappy about that, and we can't trust the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
Don't trust your best friend who's loved you for a long time, or your teacher. Belief that former followers are always wrong for leaving, and there is never a legitimate reason for anyone else to leave. Again, if people are hounding you because you no longer believe what they believe, that's a cult. Abuse of members. This is huge. Yeah, if you are being abused by the person who is leading you, and it's being done in a way that they're making it seem like they are teaching you or helping you somehow, out of the goodness of their heart, they are doing this, that's a cult. Records, books, articles, or programs documenting the abuse of the leader or the group. Um, there's stuff out there about bad things that the leader himself has done. That's easy to find on the internet, but they're telling you don't believe those things. Yep. Followers feeling they are never able to be good enough. That's a huge thing, Brett. And again, difference between religion and cult is that you will never, ever, ever be good enough. In religion, your goal is to accept who you are and try your best to be better, but to love yourself in the meantime. To know that, hey, I might not have had a good day or things might not be going great, but I have a higher power that I believe in, and I love me, and I'm trying my best. And tomorrow I'll try again. That's different than you suck and you'll always suck. No one will ever be able to tell you you're good enough. A belief that the leader is right all the time. Brett, I'm going to be honest with you. You are not always right as my youth pastor. I told that to you to your face once upon a time, a couple of times, and I have not been right every time as a youth pastor. At the end of the day, that's okay. We're allowed to be wrong.
We're humans.
Yes. And finally, Brett, a belief that the leader is the exclusive means of knowing truth or giving validation. So if everybody is only seeking the approval of one person, Brett, that's all they care about, cult. So let's talk for a moment, Brett, about a group called the Harmony Society. Now, I know what you're thinking, good looking people. Who are they? Why are you bringing them up? Well, what you need to understand about the greater Pittsburgh area is that there is a group of people in the 1800s that came around called the Harmonites, or the Harmony Society. They were banished from places like Germany because they had a theology that didn't really fit and wasn't kosher. Essentially, this was a group of Puritists that believed that even if people are married, they really shouldn't have children because children are distracting, and it's better for people to be not married and focusing in on spreading gospel slash making communities stronger and bigger, and let's not worry about children. And when you don't worry about children, you die out. And they were a very exclusive group. And so they weren't really welcoming new people into their society, and they weren't having children. And so if anyone goes, hey, how come areas like Beaver County, Butler County are kind of whack and are kind of feel hollow, there's a reason. And that's because the founding was kind of flawed and has fallen apart, and tradition was built off of, let's say, religious cult groups. I will say that you can go to Ambridge, Pennsylvania, where you can go through economy and you can see what the old Harmony Society, what their area used to look like, and the history and all that jazz. I used to live about 5 minutes away from that, walking distance. I never went on the tour. I didn't think it was worth it. So yeah. I did have stuff about real life cults, and I think it's best that we don't get into all that, Brett.
Yeah.
So
I don't think we got time to get all that.
So I think, Brett, I think that's enough for deep dives.
I think that's good. I think we've gone on long enough this week. Let's talk about what we learned.
You know anything about the Odyssey? Huh? Did I say you could talk?
I didn't teach you that.
My friend Mr. Matthews will lead the discussion.
Do I have to draw you a picture?
Well, Tyler, how about I present what I learned this week first? I learned don't try to be alone, good-looking people. Seek out community. You were made for community, and you were made for more than just a solitary existence. You're going to learn so much more and grow so much more in community because you will be able to bounce things about yourself off of other people, and people who will love you will be able to help you grow. And yes, you can be alone in community, but you will never be able to get through the loneliness without community. So that's what I take away from this week. Tyler, what about you?
I'm going to take the opposite approach, Brett, and that is be alone. And in being alone, what I mean is take time to sit in you and allow yourself to get away from people and to allow yourself to just sit in your thoughts and your beliefs and allow yourself to explore. And part of that can be communicating with a creator if you believe in that, and to explore even in some of that as well. Take your time to just sit and be still and meditate and to listen. Because so often, I know for me, I tend to get out of whack and feel like things are out of control because I don't take a few minutes to just sit and breathe and try to be at peace. Ultimate goal, I know for me, is to be in shalom, and you don't have to be Jewish or Christian to find that. You can find that even without. But after that being alone, I will agree with you. Find some people to talk it out. Help to find, look around and try to see who the people that maybe can either help you understand the differences in the beliefs and being willing to go into a judgment-free conversation. Not meaning you're not going to angrily say judging, but just saying, hey, let's get into a zone where we can talk and not insult each other. Which is very hard to do. As a teenager, I know I struggled with that myself.
All right. So.
I'm right?
No, you're exactly right.
So am I done with my education? Can I go?
The only way we'll have Mr. Turner with us the
rest how dare you!
Tyler, how do you grade cult fiction?
Well, Brett, this is going to be a very controversial grading. I do have to say myself. Brett, there's no way to say this, but I'm going away from the standardized testing grading, and in fact, I'm looking to the tier system, if you will, because in my humble opinion. This is not an A+ episode. This is an S tier episode. Yes, so this is an S tier episode, and the reason it's S tier is it is beyond an A+. I've given A+, Brett, to episodes that if this is an A+ compared to those other A+, all of my other episodes should be downgraded because this episode stands alone. In my opinion, it's not even close from this episode compared to every other episode. So if I give this episode an A+, it downgrades every single other grade. We will have to go back through, Brett, and change every single grade I've ever given. Not from a plus to a regular to a minus, a whole grade length, Brett. So any A I've given up to this point, all of those become Bs. If this is setting the curve, no one is going to pass the final test. So that's why, for me, this is beyond an A+, and it's in an S tier all on its own. And I get it; it's going to mess with your system. But it's like the F minus, you know? F+.
I'm working on a 0 to 100 point scale here. I can't just change the scale midstream.
It's like 120. You know what I mean?
Maybe I'll give you extra credit. Who knows?
There you go. My day with the president's daughter. Oh yeah, my day with her. So happy.
I agree with I agree with the sentiment behind all that. This would be my hands down top ranked episode throughout the entire series. And even to put it in the A+ category, it would be ranked tops above the other A+ with a gap. So I'm not gonna introduce a tier system right before the end of the 4th season, like you're trying to.
Come on, Brett, let's do it.
C minus and F+. But
we're having fun here, Brett. YouTube's trying to take us down. TikTok's trying to take us down. Let's just have fun here.
Oh yeah. By the by, it's it was Dads Meet Sister Teresa and Dads Meet Wake Up Little Corey.
Why?
So I'll agree with your tier, but for the grade book, it'll be a solid best of the best A+. I'll probably give extra credit points for both of us.
Yep. This is legit. When Topanga says, "Give me an A+." Yeah,
Yes.
This is give me an A+.
I need one more
I'll
to
give
be
you
the
an A+.
valedictorian.
Great. Yes. That's not how it works. We can't get into that yet. That's a whole headache a season from now. Oh, gosh.
Yes. Well, I believe before we sign off on this extra length episode, you owe me a dad joke.
I do.
And it can't be the one I sent you on Facebook Messenger earlier today, because I already know that one. Which Asher loved, by the way.
All right. What?
Asher loved that one when I showed it to him.
All right. So let's give it a short, simple one. What is Eve, as in the first woman from the Bible, what is Eve's favorite food?
Spare ribs.
Ribs, yeah. And then, Brett, I'll give you one more. What is the best way to study the Bible?
With your eyes.
To look into it. It's so
like
dumb.
It is, but they're supposed to be. All right. Well, good looking people. That is it for us this week. We thank you for sticking around with us, especially if you stuck around this long. Hopefully our passion and our zeal kept you around. We'll stick around next week. We're going to wrap up season 4's episodes with Learning to Fly, the season finale of season 4. You can connect with us on social media at dadsmeetworld across Instagram, X/Twitter, and Facebook. You can find us on YouTube at dadsmeetworld until they shut us all down. Who knows? And you can email us at dadsmeetworld@gmail.com. And you can pick up some pretty sweet Dads Meet World swag at dadsmeetworld.threadless.com. Check out this summer. They're going to run sales all summer. So who knows? Maybe you need a tank top or a new shirt or stickers. Who knows? Well, Tyler, until next week, I'll see you good looking.
Brett, he who hesitates is lost. Rachel!
I want to be normal, Spud.
You know, how can I learn so much every week and still be so stupid?
We are the Dimmers.
This is good TV.
Dads Meet World is a production of Headfirst Studios. Headfirst Studios. Tell your story. There you are.
It kicked me out.
I just started talking and like you look like you were frozen for a second. I just attributed that to buffering or something. I started talking and all of a sudden your box disappeared.
It said that my internet kicked me out. I was like, huh, that's weird.
Oh man.
Good luck editing this, you jerk.
Don't blame me, man. You're making more work for me. It's your router.
I'm not blaming you. I'm so annoyed. It's probably that. It's a mixture of a bunch of stuff. Gosh, I hate it. Okay, let me try this again. And I just started playing. I thought it was you.
No,
I'm like, that's not one of your sound bites. So yes,
yeah.